Brothers and sisters, family, we have someone who's trying to earn some brownie points in the dominant society. We have people who are trying to deny slavery and protect the sanctity of whiteness and erase history. And we're not going to allow that.
The price of freedom is set. We're coming to get our check.
Black first, my brothers and my sisters, welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. Appreciate y'all. Welcome, family. We are starting the week off right, despite the fact that we just experienced some technical difficulties. Can you believe that? I gotta reset my computer. There's some technical stuff going on, but we're not gonna let that stop us because we're gonna start this week off strong. We're gonna start this week off the way we are supposed to. So I need to know, all right, before we really get started, because there's much to discuss, all right, and we gotta go in. You guys can, first off, I want to know, how's your week been? Okay, if you guys have been having a good week, if y'all had I'm feeling good. I feel good, and I hope you guys feel good too. So if you guys are having a good week, if you guys had a good weekend, leave a thumbs up emoji in the chat room. I like to get some positive energy before we start, because trust me, it's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be one of those. So let's just get some positive energy up front, okay? Because it's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be cringe-worthy with y'all here. All right, I'm warning you now, okay? Nobody in the comment be all like, Afro, I wasn't ready. I'm warning you right now, okay? I just want the positive energy to come in, because for the rest, we going through it. We going through it, y'all. We going through it. All right. Okay, so you have this ex-fitness trainer, Jillian Michael. I guess she was doing her fitness thing or whatever the case is. Whatever, right? So for some reason she was on CNN. Now what's going on is Donald Trump is revising, or he's sending somebody to, I guess, assess the Smithsonian, and they're going to, I guess, go through and change some things that they deem as anti-American, so to speak. So whatever, I guess, is what they call anti-American, they're gonna get rid of revisionist history to a degree, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? Which is pretty much saying anything that makes the dominant society look unfavorable, they're getting rid of that. Anything that makes the dominant society look unfavorable, that's what they're getting rid of. CNN had a panel discussing the situation. Jillian Michaels, for whatever reason, was on that panel. She was on that panel, and she has some opinions. Before we play her opinions, as you guys are hopefully hitting that like button, share button, all that stuff, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be playing the copyright disclaimer to establish to YouTube that everything we play thus forth is protected under the guise of fair use. And as I'm doing that, you guys can be hitting that like button, and I'll be right back. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All right. Here we go. Okay. So it seems like a lot of people was hitting the thing. All right. Let me see. Hold on. Why we gotta start with this? They said you're busted, Afro. BX snitched on you for not wearing your glasses on the last photo. I'm gonna talk to BX. She couldn't see it. Ms. Nisi, I was wearing my glasses. I was just far away from the screen, and I took it off for a little bit, because I had to wipe them. I was wearing my glasses. Please don't get on me. Please don't do that. No, BX was wrong. I was wearing my glasses the whole time. Don't you love it? I was wearing it. She's snitching on me, trying to get me in trouble. I was wearing my glasses. All right. But let's get started with the situation, the viral clip. All right, and then we're gonna start really getting into it with other receipts and people's follow-up videos and stuff like that. Okay, so here it is from CNN.
gone into the Smithsonian, and he's effectively now has some random person deciding what is appropriate for the Smithsonian to teach in terms of American history, things that don't offend parts of the MAGA base, right? So we're now literally reviewing parts of American history and parts of American culture to make sure it comports with Dear Leader and what the MAGA organization
Can we address
wants.
some of those things that are in there? Because have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Yeah, slavery was a bad thing that we should talk about.
Okay.
Like,
he's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No,
okay.
He's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does.
Okay. It's not really true that every exhibit does that, but let me say this is that she does have a very strong masculine features. Okay, very strong face. But listen, you can't tie racism to one race. Okay, what other race do you want to tie racism to? Who else can be blamed for racism and imperialism and colonialism? What other race of people can be blamed for that? Because if we can't tie it to one race, let's hear that out and let's figure out what other race of people can be blamed. Because it seems like there's a common denominator in all of the things that she's just saying. Okay, let's be honest. Oh, and every time, you can't make it seem like racism is just about one race. No, racism is about white supremacy. There is only one white supremacy. There is no other racial supremacy. They created the concept of racial categories to establish a system of white supremacy. All right. So yes. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we absolutely can and should tie them to responsibility with that. We should, absolutely, 100%. 100%. Getting back to it.
Well, let's talk about the fact that when you
let's talk about the fact
that slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery?
Okay, and I know I just paused it. I know I did. I gotta say this though. Do you all notice, and this is something I've been noticing for the last few years or so, all right? Notice how they keep trying to lower the number of the slave owners. Just notice that. I remember when because nobody believes that 100% of white people, every single white person was a slave owner during the times of slavery. Nobody believes that. Everybody understands there were rich slave owners, there were overseers, there were people who didn't own slaves. We get it. We know that. Nobody is slow. We all understand that. Okay. So they was all like, oh no, only a few. And I remember they used to say it was only about 10%. Only about 10% of white people own slaves. It was like, okay, well, we know it wasn't all. They said it was only about 10%. I remember when they first started saying that. Then they lowered it to saying it was only about 5%. I remember when they started lowering the number from 10% to 5%. I'm like, okay. Now all of a sudden she's saying less than 2%. So I was like, all right, well, what are y'all doing? Damn. What are y'all doing? They're going to make it seem as if only one person owned a slave. Okay. That's literally what they're trying to make it seem like. They keep lowering the number. And the reason why they're doing that is because they're trying to make slavery seem like, and eventually they will say slavery, that was kind of like a myth, really. That's eventually where they're going to go if we allow them. Now, they're doing this because they want slavery to be framed as this isolated event that a few people carried out. They're not trying to make it seem like it was a system and a government and a society that backed, supported, reinforced, and defended slavery for hundreds of years. They're going to make it seem like, oh, well, you know, there were some bad slave owners, as if that is separate from American society. American society is literally built off of slavery. Okay, there would be no American society if it wasn't for slavery. All right. So the whole, well, only 2% of people had slaves, which even if we say that's the truth, I doubt that's the truth. But even in normal, she normally quotes, or if you go to her tweet, she quotes like a year. Oh, in 1860. No, we're talking about from the beginning of chattel slavery to the end of chattel slavery. All right. And they keep trying to frame it as if it's the small amount of people. And here's the biggest part about the situation. It doesn't matter. It really does not matter what percentage of people owned the slaves, because 100% of the society benefited, 100% of the dominant society, I would say, benefited from slavery. All of them benefited because slavery was ingrained in the system of America. So slavery benefited the slave owners. Yes, we understand that, and enriched them. It also enriched the entire country and the economy. So you didn't have to own a slave to benefit from slavery. And a lot of them were slave catchers, bounty hunters. A lot of people worked when it came to shipping the crops that the slaves would grow and pick and all. A lot of people worked when it came to the banks. A lot of people would do collateral. They would use slaves as collateral. A lot of people benefited even if they did not own a slave. All right. And even if they didn't directly partake in the actual slavery, they still indirectly did that because slavery fueled the economy. So there's levels and degrees to how much they were involved in slavery. But to be honest, if you were in this country, you were involved. There's no, I'm in this country and I'm not involved in slavery at all. I have nothing to do with that. Like, you're void from what the rest of the country got going on. That's not what happened. The entire country has this going on. It's enriching the entire country. It built the entire country. So you are a part of that. All right. So all of this, it's only 2%. That's irrelevant. Even if it was true, that's irrelevant.
Is thousands of years old.
White people were
Do you know
the slave
who
owners.
was the first race to try to end slavery?
Okay.
And do you know who the first race to try to end slavery? It wasn't white folk. It was not white people. Okay.
Well, what's controversial?
Actually, you want to talk about the first race to end slavery or fight against slavery? It was black people. Okay. It was black people, actually.
Very surprised
This is
that
an
you're trying to
extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism. I would say.
I'm really surprised.
Do you realize that
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and who was not.
What I'm trying to tell you is
in
that
the context of American history.
Okay.
In the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by saying that it was white people oppressing black people?
Every single thing is like, oh, no, this is all because white people bad. And that's just not the truth. Like, for example, every single exhibit, I have a list of every single one. Like, people migrated from Cuba because white people bad. Not because of Castro. Yes, no, it's in there. That's what I'm saying. You don't actually know what's in there. Do you know that when you
notice she starts a sentence. Oh, it's not because white people bad. It's because of, do you know what's in there? Notice she keeps doing this. She will go in the middle of a sentence and then stop and then pick up on a completely different sentence. Oh, if it's not because of quote unquote white people bad, which is not what the Smithsonian is saying, they're telling the truth. They're telling the history. And if the history makes white people look bad, then that's just what it is. The thing is that you want a version of the events that don't put white people in a bad light. That's the thing. And she can't really defend it with actual historical fact. So she's saying, she's trying to simplify it and say, it's not white people bad because it's, I have a list. Okay. The thing is that, okay, well, listen to me. Like, notice she's jumping all over the place and she's not landing on one point, which is why everybody in the room is like, why are you rambling? What are you doing? What is going on?
Walk in the
Jillian,
front door.
What exactly?
The first thing you see is the gay flag.
Jillian, you have a lot of stuff in front of
I
you.
do,
What
because
exactly
because here's the thing.
are you talking about?
Okay, I'll give you an.
And she says, you have a gay flag. If I'm not mistaken, she's a lesbian. But okay, all right.
example.
Yeah, please.
There's one called Change Your Game, right? This has been an installation there. Is gender testing fair in sports? Does that, and then it goes on to talk about how it's complex to do gender testing in sports. It's not complex. It's basic science. That's untrue. It's XX chromosome, XY chromosome. That's sports. Is it fair to have biological men competing against biological women in sports? No. But why is this in the Smithsonian?
Okay. Let's take this back. Let's take that back. That was not her original point. Okay? It was not. And notice that conservatives, when they can't stand on something about like what they like claim white racism, reverse racism, whatever the case, what they tend to do is they use the whole transgender sports league thing, which they understand there's a general consensus that males and females should play in different sports divisions. That's a general consensus even among people who have like liberal beliefs and things like that. That it's a general consensus of that. So she starts off talking about, well, it's not about white people bad, then makes points about slavery, and nothing she says is fact-based. And she's jumping all over the place, unable to land or make a point. As it stands right now, she has not really articulated what her point and what her issue is. And then she goes all the way to transgender sports, which had nothing to do with the original point. And this is to deflect. This is a method to deflect from what the original point is and why she's really upset. She's really upset because, and she said it in the beginning, the Smithsonian has exhibits that make white people look bad. And she did not voice her issue being about transgender sports leagues or whatever the exhibit is. That's not what she really has an issue with, okay? And I'm going to show you with other tweets she's made. She doesn't really have an issue with that. But that's the only thing she can really articulate. So she's jumping all over the place and then she lands there, which has nothing to do with the original point, okay? That has nothing to do with the point. And her rambling is getting everybody to be like, what? Why are you going off? Like something just triggered you. It was like a switch. You flipped and you're triggered and nobody knows why you're going off like this. And you're jumping here and jumping. Well, slavery. Do you know how many white people fought in slavery? Okay. And what about bathrooms? Okay. Huh? Where are we going?
So it's been completely captured.
First of all, I don't.
And it's totally partisan.
We don't. First of all, we don't have time to litigate all of this.
Of course we don't, because then you're going to lose the argument. And everything is racialized, just like you're trying to do to me now.
Excuse me.
It's like,
everything and here's the whole thing where now she's playing the victim. Well, everything is racialized, just like you're trying to do to me. No, that's her using that little white privilege. You're racializing me. That's what you're doing. I'm being attacked. I'm being attacked. People are asking you what you mean because you're the one who said, hey, she's the one who brought up race. Okay. Because when the other girl was all like, yeah, well, slavery, she's like, oh, he's not trying to whitewash slavery. Because she first said, we can't make it seem like racism. She brought racism up. Apartheid, racism, colonialism, and something else was just about one race. She brought race up, okay? And then people are like, you know what? Where are you talking about? Where are you going with this? You're racializing me. You're attacking me. That's what she's doing because she can't make a point that makes sense. Everybody else is just kind of confused because she's starting one sentence and then moving to the middle of another sentence. And then she keeps doing that the whole time. And then she tried to pull a Karen move. You're racializing the whole thing. You're racializing me. I'm being attacked. Okay, all right.
I can't believe you're trying to suggest, that slavery
just to be
is a good
clear,
thing.
You brought up race.
No,
this was a conversation about the arts, and you brought up race.
It isn't.
You brought up,
but the whole point of this is that the issue
you brought up slavery. And you brought up the question of whether, you brought up the question of whether or not slavery in the United States is about race. The answer is
no, I
yes.
Didn't. I did not say
in the United States.
No, don't straw man my argument because that's not what I said.
So what are you
brought
talking
up
about?
Slavery.
She didn't say that. That's what she implied. She heavily implied that because she made with the statement that only quote unquote 2% of white people own slaves. She's making it seem like the foundation of this country wasn't rooted in white supremacy. All right. Because she was saying you can't tie colonialism, racism to one race. You can't do that. And then how many white people died in the Civil War? So yes, that was the implication of what she said.
And what I was talking about is that this isn't really about that. When you make every single exhibit about white imperialism when it isn't relevant at all, that is.
It isn't relevant at all. Now, I want you guys to understand something. Because that was interesting what she just said. Okay. It's not relevant at all. Listen, these people will never bring it up. Ever. They will never bring up white imperialism. They will never bring up the system of white supremacy. They will never bring up any history that puts white people in an unfavorable light. They will never do that. And every time we do that, it's always too much. It's always, oh, why does every single thing have to be about white people bad? That's what she said. That's what she said. But the thing is that if you say anything about white people bad or anything that makes white people look bad, they'll say it's too much. So it's not like we're just beating the horse. We're beating a dead horse. Don't think that way. Okay. Because they keep trying to frame it as if we're obsessed with trying to make them look bad. They keep trying to make it seem like we're obsessed with the conversation of white racism. No. Anytime it's ever brought up to them, it's brought up too much. Anytime racism is ever brought up, unless you're talking about their racism, unless you're talking about anti-white racism, racism that they claim that they experience, then anytime you bring up racism or history, it's too much. All right. And she says it's not relevant. Well, yes, it is relevant. Otherwise, you wouldn't be telling the story. The story wouldn't exist if it wasn't relevant.
Is a problem. So when you're talking about Cubans leaving Cuba and you make it about white people bad, that's not accurate.
Can I just say something?
That's my point.
And you make it about white people bad, that's not accurate. Okay. What is accurate? If we shouldn't make it, I want y'all to think about it like this. If we shouldn't make it about quote unquote white people bad, what should it be made about? Then what is the accurate? Notice she doesn't articulate that. She keeps saying, well, it's not about white people bad. It's not about white people bad. We can't just keep making white people look bad. We can't do that. Okay, as opposed to what? You're making it seem like we're spinning a narrative or telling a story that's untrue or inaccurate for the reason of making you all look bad. But if that's not the truth, if that's not the case, what is the case? What really did happen in Cuba? All right. Now, speaking of which, she goes on a thing on the Twitter. She goes on Twitter. And she speaks about the situation. She makes a couple of things. Speaking about the situation, I'm going to read some of it. Not maybe, maybe not all. But here she goes. This is her Twitter account. She rants. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But look, okay. So for everyone watching me on at CNN tonight, Battling Out with Abby Phillips show, this is one of the Smithsonian exhibits I was referencing. Trump is not trying to, quote, erase slavery by suggesting some of the installations there are inaccurate and biased, okay? You did defend slavery, or you did try to erase slavery and mistell slave history in America. That is what you did, Jillian. It continues to say, notice how it omits a certain fact that Cubans fled Castro's communist regime instead of the crisis solely as the result of U.S. support of dictators, a misleading oversimplification. Okay. Now, I want you guys to keep this in mind before I break this down. She didn't say this on CNN for a reason. There was a reason why she didn't bring this up on CNN. It says, while the U.S. did back Batista, an unpopular and corrupt leader, mass immigration began after Castro seized power in 1959. Cuba became one-party communist state aligned with the Soviet Union. Political opponents, journalists, and business owners were jailed, executed, and driven into exile. Private property was nationalized. Dissent was criminalized. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing with that, right? Castro, she's saying that, okay, well, yeah, the U.S. did back Batista, but people left with Castro. People fled when Castro got in charge. Batista came before Castro. I'm not going to go too much into the Cuban history, but Batista, I'm forgetting, he has a very long first name. Batista was a leader who was backed, who was a plant by the U.S., okay? He was working in lockstep with the U.S. The U.S. supported Batista. And Batista is one of the ones, not the only, but one of the ones who set the condition after a revolution took place where Castro, Fidel Castro took leadership of Cuba. That started in 1959. Okay, this, you got to know history. There's a reason she didn't say this on CNN, because if she said this on CNN, it would have been debunked. You're saying that you can't blame the U.S., blame Castro, but the U.S. set the condition before Castro got in power. People started fleeing in 1959, but that was after I forgot exactly what it's called, the revolution in Cuba. All right. And then after Batista, his power was removed, people started leaving. But that's right when Castro got in charge. So she's trying to imply that people left because of Castro, and it was not because of Batista, and it was not because of the U.S., when actually, if you tell the story from a chronological point of view, the U.S. was involved heavily in the conditions that went on in Cuba. All right, which is why she didn't want to say that at CNN, because it's still, the truth does make white people look bad. It does. Which is why they're trying to remix that and tell stories out of character, out of context. All right, in order. Let's get to some of the super chats real fast. All right. Okay. Shout out to Dakota Jenkins. Dakota Jenkins says, after speaking to non-black foreigners at my job, their version of American history is very different from what's taught to us here. I wonder why. I mean, come on. Yep. And no wonder they're coming here with this chip on their shoulder and disdain and rivalry and vitriol for us because of what they've been taught. Okay. Tell it like it is, says Proverbs 28:13 talks about the consequence of hiding I messed that up. Hold on. The consequence of hiding transgressions, and because of what the ancestors will be paying Jillian, hold on, my bad. And the ancestors will be paying Jillian a visit soon enough. My tongue is twisting. Y'all just forgive me. Okay. Now, I'm not here to sit up there and talk, because I'm not I'm going to be honest with you. I know a lot about history, and I'm trying to do my best to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, for everybody, for the benefit of the community. I'm not an expert necessarily in Cuban history. I will admit that. I'm not an expert in Cuban history, but I do know that she told the story out of order. I do know that. Okay. As far as all of the details that went on in Cuba and all of the other factors, that can maybe be a conversation for another time. I'm just letting that be known. All right. Letting that be known. Okay. Because that's what people with integrity do. They will admit that they don't know stuff, unlike Jillian. Now, going forward, right? we got people who are now trying to defend her. Now, she also said something else on Twitter. Let me show you that real fast. She also said something else on Twitter. Now, she didn't bring up any of the transgender sports things or whatever the case. She didn't bring that up on Twitter, which lets you know exactly what her real issue is. Her real issue is not about no transgender sports or whatever the case. None of that, okay? Okay. And she tweets this. I can't see what the original post was, but she says, I'm denigrating all of humanity by pointing out that 98% of American white people in 1860, just keep this in mind, she's specifying 1 year in 1860. Even if she specifies from 1860 all the way to the end of slavery, that's only 5 years. That's literally only 5 years. And then she says, didn't participate slavery, perpetuating. I'm sorry. Hold on, my bad. Almost has things. Perpetrate slavery. They did actually. They did perpetrate slavery. They did perpetrate slavery, even if they didn't own one. And they keep trying to relegate perpetuating slavery and participating in enabling slavery into owning it. There were a lot of judges who reinforced slave laws, a lot of lawyers who backed up slave cases and things. There were banks who benefited from slavery. There was a lot of people who benefited from slavery who didn't own one. So she's trying to make it seem like slavery was some isolated event that was only done by a few people and the rest of the country had nothing to do with it. And that is a historical lie. That's a lie. All right. And then she says, in fact, many white people died to end it. Okay. When they bring that up, notice, right? When they bring that up, they don't talk about the fact that most of the people who were drafted in the Civil War did not want to fight the Civil War. Notice also when they bring this up, right? They don't say who they fought. Keep that in mind. They don't tell you who they fought against. Okay, they'll bring up the Civil War as if that's some type of award that they should get, as if that's something glorious that they should be looked up to with esteem for the history of the Civil War. But a Civil War is civil. It is civil. It is domestic. So that was a fight internally to end slavery. You literally had to go through a whole war to end slavery. That means you all fought among each other for slavery and against slavery. Even the ones who were fighting against it didn't want it to end and were still pro-slavery. They were just pro-union and they recognized and wanted to save the union. Even Abraham Lincoln himself said that he didn't want to end slavery. He wanted to save the union, and that was his priority, saving the union. But if he could find another way to save the union without ending slavery, he would have done that. He said so, okay? He said so. And as a matter of fact, when you want to tell the history, it was the black soldiers in the Civil War who actually won the Civil War. Because the Union, and I keep having to say this, but we're going to have to keep saying it, and we're going to just keep saying it till we blue in the face. The Union, the white Union, was losing the Civil War. That was the truth. They were losing. The Confederacy was beating them. And it wasn't until the black soldiers joined and fought alongside the Union where the Union started to make victories and a comeback and defeated the Confederacy and had the Confederacy surrender. It wasn't until the black soldiers did that. Even Abraham Lincoln conceded to that. Abraham Lincoln admitted that they would have lost if it wasn't for the freedmen soldiers. He said so himself. So while y'all want to sit up there and use the Civil War that y'all was fighting, that we as FBA had to jump in there and end, y'all don't get that victory. If anybody gets that victory, it's us, and us really alone, to be very honest with you. All right, let's get to the situation. Megyn Ku Klux Kelly, she had something she wanted to say. about the situation. She just loved Jillian's stand or stance on the situation. She loved it. She's with this guy. I'm not too familiar with him. His name is Stu Bergurer. I might be mispronouncing the name. Bergurer, I believe. It's some foreign name. I'm not exactly sure where that's from, but she's with him. But this is what she had to say about the situation.
Thoughts on it?
Yes, that was awesome. Yeah, it's a complicated picture when it comes to trying to just blame slavery on one race. It's just not true. I mean, like,
no,
slavery has existed since the beginning of man, and it's a really terrible thing.
Slavery existed since the beginning of man? I don't know about that, but okay.
All recognize it's a real stain on our history, and it is something that we should cover. That's a really, really important thing that people understand about our country, largely because, number one, we were one of the very first to rip ourselves out of that whole situation. Thankfully,
the only country that's fought a war to end slavery.
And I keep saying this, well, they keep trying to frame it as if that's some noble fact that they should be proud of. Why did it take a whole civil war to end slavery? Because there's been other nations, many other countries that's ended slavery and it didn't take a damn civil war. The fact that you all, or America, needed a whole civil war to end slavery just shows how much slavery was ingrained in America and in the American people, and how much white supremacy was ingrained in the American people. That's not no fact you guys get to ride home on and make it seem like that's some noble thing. You all were fighting among yourselves about slavery. That's not something you can puff your chest out to with some type of pride.
Yeah, right. And that's something to be proud of. And you know, when you do something that is a stain on your history, correcting that stain is something that's really, really important and also part of your history. Also part of your history is, for example, the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. There's a copy of it right across the parking lot from where I'm sitting at the Mercury One Museum, where they go deep into trying to end slavery before this nation even started. It was something that was a high priority of Thomas Jefferson, of people who at the very beginning.
Thomas Jefferson was a notorious slave owner. He was one of the worst slave owners. Talk about it was a high priority for him to end slavery. He didn't make it a priority his entire life.
Beginning of our nation, looked to try to end it. There was some opposition. They wound up going in a situation to keep the original colonies together, and eventually with a real, by the way, line to end it as soon as possible, which they eventually did. I think you don't look at slavery and say, oh, well, we should justify it. It wasn't that bad. It was horrible. It's one of the worst things that people do to other people, and they continue to do it to other people all over the world right now. It's still occurring. So this museum has become exactly what she was describing there. It becomes this bizarre sort of woke left-wing self-punishment where you go in there and just think about how bad you are, when in reality we are the greatest nation that's ever been. There's no apology for that. The same thing that happens with capitalism, where we sit here and we say, oh, well, there's this problem with capitalism and there's this problem. Of course there are problems with everything. We can sit here and look at the problems of capitalism and try to make it better, but we should also acknowledge it's ripped billions of people out of poverty around the world. It's one of the greatest things that humans have ever accomplished. It's happened within our lifetime, and nobody notices because we're complaining about, what statue is in some park in Alabama. None of this, it doesn't make any sense the way that we handle these things. And
now, what's interesting, notice that he earlier said, and I'll let him go, he earlier said that slavery is a stain in our history and we should do what we need to do to correct that. That's what he said, remember? He did say that. Then he's going to gaslight the fact that we have slave owners and people who fought for the Confederacy to keep slavery, we have their statues in parks, multiple statues in multiple parks in the nation. So if you guys really care about getting rid of or cleaning the sin of slavery and correcting the mistake, why do you guys defend keeping the statues up of the people who enforced and enabled slavery? And they want those statues to stay up. And anytime somebody says a statue of Robert E. Lee should come down, they will say that's disrupting and that's erasing American history. That's what they'll say. For people who claim that they don't really they don't want to get rid of slavery. That's very interesting. That's very, very interesting. All right.
And I think what we should do is look at them with perspective, recognize that we've made mistakes, try to use those as examples of things to avoid forever, and learn the lesson of those things. And Megan, one of the central lessons of slavery is we shouldn't judge people by the color of their skin. And for the last, certainly since the George Floyd situation in prominence, the left has tried to recreate a situation in that which that's the way we run our society. Everybody looks at each other and says, what skin color are you? Okay, now we can judge what you can do, what colleges you can get into, what jobs you can get. That was the sort of thing we were supposed to be running away.
That's first off, it's always been a thing. That's always been a thing. And notice, like I said, they will say pretty much slavery, racism is something should never be discussed. It should never, ever, ever be discussed unless we're going to discuss it as if the white people are the victim. These will be the same people who will tell us that we need to get rid of our victim mentality. And we have a victim mindset, and we can't succeed if we have this victim mindset. They never complain when the victim is the white person. When the victim is the white person, it's cool, it's fine. When the victim is non-white, then, oh, well, let's stop with the victim mentality. Let's stop with all of that. We don't need to do that much. You know what I'm saying? That's how they do all of the time. He's saying for the last few years, as if discrimination, whether that's when it comes to employment, whether that's when it comes to housing, whether that's when it comes to economics, schooling, whatever, has not always gone on. And then he's going to frame it as if, well, you tell people what jobs they can't get, what things they can't do. That's what he's implying is the whole affirmative action in DEI is hurting white people because of reverse racism. That's what he's implying with that.
Away from, they're trying to push us back. And I do think, at least since, 2023 or so, we've made great progress moving the opposite direction, but there is still a lot of work to do, as that clip shows.
No, it's amazing. Like we went down, as I said, and we went to a bunch of the museums, and what you get over and over again is like, okay, they lean in. They want to spend all the time on slavery and Jim Crow. Like there's an emphasis on the worst pieces of our past. It's like they get off on it. And then conversely, you see like a huge celebration everywhere you go of like women who did this, like women who flew, women. It's like, that's okay. We get it. There were some women who did some great things, and that's awesome. I have nothing against women, but let's be honest. That's not the dominant story when we're talking about our country's history in flight. There are a couple who stood out. We get it. Amelia Earhart and some others. But like, that's not the story, but you wouldn't know that, like you go down and like, you've always got to be told what black person did something, what woman did something, what gay person did something. It's like, can we just know can we have the bigger picture, please? Can we have like the story, and maybe like a corner is devoted to what some minority participated in or how they contributed, and try not to make the whole story about that because you feel the need to elevate or to center the conversation around some oppressed group. That's what the Smithsonian has done. And I really hope that Trump and his team take a hard look at it and do what they say they're going to do.
Okay. I want y'all to understand something too. When these people complain about women, these people are feminist. All right. Don't be confused. Don't be confused in that these people are feminists. These people, Megyn Kelly, she's espoused many different feminist talking points. They have to throw women, not white women. They don't racialize the women, but they'll throw women in under the guise of feminism or under the guise of woke or whatever so they can have a disguise to make it seem like what they're saying is not anti-black. Okay? Because notice after she said women, she went straight to, yeah, and what black person did this? What black person? She started off talking about she doesn't like the highlight of women, so that way she can segue that to she doesn't really like the highlight of black people. And if she just came out and said, I don't like the highlight of black people and left it at that like she really wants to, it would be obvious that it's anti-black racism. So she's saying, oh, well, I don't like the highlight of women. I don't like the highlight of black people. I really don't like the highlight of black people. But you know what I'm saying? It's black people that she does not like the highlight of. She wouldn't be complaining if certain exhibits didn't portray a certain race, like Jillian said, as the bad guys. Okay. So these people, trust me, she don't got no issue with white women being highlighted. She doesn't. She's only saying that so she can have some type of cover, so she can save face a little bit when she throws black people under the bus and says she doesn't like the highlight of black people without openly coming out as anti-black racist as she really is. Let me get to this other super chat because there's some other thing. There's another thing. Boy, because we just getting started. I'm telling you, we got through the easy stuff. If y'all believe that. We got through the easy stuff. What I need y'all to do is I need y'all to hit that like button. Everybody in here, let's hit that like button. 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 Subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure. All right. So let me get to the super chat and then we're going to move on. Shout out to Chris, my brother. He says, the freedmen fought with honor and courage. Lincoln and even Union generals said this. So they freed themselves and still don't get what was promised. That's true. That's true. They freed themselves. That's very true. Very, very true. Thank you. Thank you. Some people saying they're subscribed. Thank you. But boy, when I tell you, when there is a white ass that needs to be kissed, everybody has to move out the way. Everybody gonna have to move out the way. Because, man, let me tell y'all, Brandon Tatum don't ever miss a chance to kiss some white ass. And he don't. I feel like he feels as if it gives him life. I feel like he feels as if this is like some type of oxygen. He kisses white ass like they give him oxygen directly. This, I mean, it is just, it's something that I have just not, you almost cannot comprehend. There's not a single time when a white ass needs to be kissed where he's not there with his lips puckered on all fours talking about, massa, please, come on. One kiss, please. Okay? I've been good, please. Oh, Lord. Look, man. Okay, here we go. Y'all brace yourselves, man. Y'all just brace yourselves. If y'all feeling nauseous, get a garbage can next to you. I'm just letting you know, because he goes in. Oh, Lord.
100% correct at what she's saying, and they're gaslighting her because the conversation when we started the video was very, very clear. She's saying that there's things in the Smithsonian that are depicting history in a disingenuous and even some cases fraudulent way. Slavery had nothing to do with race.
Yo. He just started it. Oh my God. When I tell y'all, slavery had nothing to do with race. Okay. At first they used to say slavery wasn't all about race. Now they're saying slavery had nothing to do with race. Let him. Okay. All right. Boy, I'm telling you, man.
It was available cheap labor. That's why you see Africans owning Africans, selling them all across the world. Majority of the slaves were in South America. It wasn't even in America. And then roughly 2%, I've seen lower numbers than 2% of white people in America own slaves. So the majority, 98% of white people didn't even own a single slave. It wasn't about race unless you were, I want to say the R word. I want to say it. Can I say it? Unless you return, then you would know. And if you study history, see, back when I was.
Oh, and then he says the R word. He calls us all the, first off, the whole slavery wasn't about race because it existed in other places. No, there's different versions of servitude pretty much that's existed before American slavery. America was the first people because they designed the whole concept of racial class system. That's what they did. And they racialized slavery. They racialized the treatment of white supremacy. They did that. While he's sitting up there talking about slavery wasn't about race, all of them back during that, here's how he can't get away with that, because all of them admitted to it. These slave owners, the Confederate generals and the Confederate soldiers, they all admitted to being white supremacists. And they did not want to see the end of white supremacy. Okay. Even Abraham Lincoln himself said, hey, I'm not trying to free. I don't believe in the equality of the races. Abraham Lincoln himself said that. They all said that. So you're trying to say now that even though the benefits of slavery still belong to the dominant society, even though they're still reaping the wealth of the slave labor, they're trying to escape it and say, well, it really didn't have anything to do with slavery, when the founding fathers and the people who operated the slave trade said it did. You can't say that it had nothing to do with slavery when the people who own slaves said, I'm doing this because I'm white and we're better than them. Now you're trying to come up with a history as if we don't know. See, your problem, his problem, is the fact that we all know the history. We know too well what these people were on. And if it wasn't the case, why, after slavery? See, the thing is that he's going to have to skip. This is how you know he knows he's a lying piece of crap, okay? Because he has to skip from 1865 all the way to 1965, and he has to skip a whole 100 years. Because if slavery wasn't about race, then explain what black laws were about. Why did that happen? Explain what Jim Crow was about. Why did that happen? So you mean to tell me there was no racism, there was no white supremacy all throughout the hundreds of years of slavery, and then when slavery ended, people became racist after slavery? That's what makes sense. So Jim Crow spawned out of nowhere. There was no resentment or hatred or ill will towards black people until after slavery. Let him tell it. Let him tell it. That's the way that worked. Okay. Even though people before were saying, oh yeah, this is about race, we don't like them. They created pseudoscience where they would measure the skulls of black people, and they would say, because of evolution, we are an evolved human species. So white people, because they actually used to say that black people were Neanderthals, and then the history came out about the fact that they were Neanderthals, and then they started to say, well, actually, because we came after them and Negroes predate us, if we use the science of evolution, since we are a newer species than the Negroes, we are a more evolved species than the Negroes. So we are genetically superior to them. And a lot of them still use that talking point as well too, which is why you hear them say things like the IQ thing. A lot of that stems from the Darwinisms and the evolution theory that the white species is an evolved version of the human Negro. Okay. So that's what they try to do. This is stuff that is well documented all throughout the course of history and all throughout the course of slavery. So you can't come hundreds of years later and say it had nothing to do with race. It did. It was all about race. They said it. So unless you're going to go back in time and say that the slave owners were lying about the reason they own slaves, then no, you're lying.
In college, they taught real history. And that was just back in 2005. I took Africana Studies in college, and Africana Studies revealed the true nature of slavery and how it was associated with the continent of Africa and how it was disseminated across the world. It was the Africans who enslaved black people. Why do people act like that wasn't the beginning of the slave trade?
We're talking about America. We're talking about America. Okay? Because even if we want to talk about the whole situation with Africa, first off, every black person, every black slave didn't actually come from Africa. We know the history of that too. Okay? You all enslaved indigenous people, and they keep trying to say the whole thing about Africa, because they want to make it seem like, well, no, this was a mutually beneficial exchange of labor. That's what they keep trying to frame it as a exchange of labor. And yeah, maybe we did a little bit too much. Maybe we went a little bit too far, but this was something that was already known to happen throughout the world. No, you all went to different places, colonized and enslaved indigenous populations of people. And since you can't really clean that up, you're trying to put all of this pressure and all of the weight and blame on Africa and say, well, no, really, it was really Africa who made me. I didn't want to do it, honestly. It was the African people. They were like, here, take a slave or I'll throw this spear at you. I was like, okay, damn. No, we're not going to let that happen.
Africans enslaved blacks. Africans then sold blacks. They put them on the ships. They assisted in getting black people from the continent wherever they went. And when they got to America, it wasn't about race. It just so happened to be that the blacks in Africa were cheap labor. Because
it just so happened.
They tried to enslave other whites in America when they first got here. They tried to enslave Native Americans when they first got here. But the Native Americans had a common language. And the Native Americans knew the terrain better than the slave owners did. So what happened? They would often escape. They could not keep the Native Americans in the plantation. They couldn't keep them bound because they would talk and the people who enslaved them don't know what they're saying.
Okay, and here's how you know that that's not true. That's not true, and that's been debunked. And here's how you know his own logic debunks that narrative. Because if they had a language, listen, just follow me, family. Lock in with me real quick, okay? Just lock in. His logic is they have languages that the Europeans don't know of. So because of the language that the Europeans don't know of, they weren't able to successfully enslave them. Okay, well, don't the Africans also have languages that you don't know of? So you're going to go to another continent. Let's just do a little math. Let's do a little bit of math, not much, a little bit of math. So you're going to leave your continent, go to another continent, enslave people and I want you to understand, all of this happened hundreds of years ago. There weren't these big ships like it is now, okay? Ships don't move that fast in the ocean, okay? This ain't a movie. Even today, they don't. So back then, it would take months and months to make these trips in the water. You're just in the ocean for months at a time. Just keep that in mind. Just keep in mind. So for months at a time, you and a crew of people would have to have enough food, water, resources to travel months in time to go to a land, to grab a whole group of people, and hopefully you guys had enough resources to travel months at a time to go to a different continent and enslave people. So does that not seem a little backwards though? I mean, just looking at it from a third person point of view. If you're just looking at it from a third person point of view, like that don't seem like that would have really worked. You know, when you put it that way, it just doesn't seem like it's logical. And even let's say it was, let's say it did happen that way. Let's say it did. don't the African people know a different language than the Europeans do? So with the argument of you can't enslave natives because they know a different language, if Africans know a different language, how is it more effective to slave Africans then? Your own logic, his own logic defeats that. Even if we gave that to him, his own logic already defeats his point. It already is his point is already done at that point, by that time. All right. Another thing, they knew the terrain and all of that stuff, and we've already discovered and exposed the fact that there were black people who were here. Okay, that's true. It's either true or it's not true. It's either a fact or it's not a fact. We have the evidence that verifies the fact that it is a fact. So it is a fact. All right, it is. But boy, I'm telling you,
they would scheme and plot an escape. And then when they did escape, they knew the terrain better than anybody, so they couldn't catch them. So what did they do? There was cheap labor off the continent of Africa. They brought them over here and they auctioned them off. Could there be nefarious, malicious things that happened in between? Yes, I'm sure there was. Maybe some people did get stolen and maybe there was some theft.
Notice he said, could there, as if that's some type of guess, as if black subjugation and dehumanization during the slave trade is up for interpretation. Could there, as if that's not a definite fact, as if that's not a documented fact that it did happen. Notice he continues to use language like that to belittle it. Just by using the language of could there have been some nefarious things going on? No. Do you mean that there was pure evil things that happened during slavery? Things that the world had not seen prior to that time? Yes. He said, like, yeah, could there have been some nefarious thing? No, nefarious things is an employer tipping their employee or underpaying them. Okay? That's no, it is pure evil what happened.
That went on with stealing bodies and taking them places. But for the most part, legitimate, legal slave trade at the time was going on in America. Most people in the South did not own slaves. And the crazy thing is that if you talk about that it's a race thing, then you have to argue that black people are racist against black people because hundreds of black people own slaves in the South. Natives own slaves. What are we talking about? We celebrate Juneteenth because the last remnant, which they lie to you about, you look it up, the last remnant of black slaves were notified that they were actually free. That wasn't the last remnant because the Choctaw Indians still owned slaves at that time for an entire year or so after Juneteenth.
Now, he is correct about the natives, even though they're not really natives. If we're going to be honest, they're really not the natives like that. But that doesn't really have to do with American slavery because they had their own reservations, so they were technically not American. But anyway, bringing up notice they keep doing that when it comes to black people owning slaves. They used to say it's a lot of black people. Now he's saying hundreds. He's literally saying hundreds of black people own slaves. Okay. Notice that they keep going up on the number. They're going down on the number of white people who own slaves, and they're going up on the number of black people who allegedly own slaves. He can't name hundreds of black people who own slaves, but he's going to say hundreds of black people own slaves. Okay. But only 2% of white people. So the number of white people who own slaves is actually very low, and the number of black people who own slaves is incredibly high. Let him tell it. All right. Here's how you debunk that. Ask this one question. Who were the slaves? What race were the slaves? If it was not about race, then there should have been white slaves, black slaves, Asian slaves, whatever. Why were there only black slaves? Let me give you one better. how many, because if there were hundreds of black slave owners, how many black slave owners owned white people? Okay? Let that marinate. Let that marinate. If it was not about race, how many black slave owners owned white people? None. Because what happens is a lot of the black slave owners, because they couldn't really give slaves, because even if you were not a slave, and this is how you know the system of white supremacy was enrooted in the country, it wasn't just about slavery, it was about anti-blackness, okay? Because even as a freedman, there were still laws that you couldn't do. There were still things you couldn't do that was against the law. You still didn't have the rights of a citizen, okay? That's how you got Brown v. Board, okay? Okay. So that defeats the whole thing about there was no white supremacy, all right? Because you wouldn't have the Brown v. Board of Education if it wasn't about white supremacy, if it was just about slavery, all right? So back during that time, even if you were a freed black person, you couldn't give another black person their freedom papers. You couldn't do that. So let's say if I was a freed black person at the time, I couldn't, even if I bought my cousin, I couldn't give my cousin his freedom. I couldn't do that. So the safest thing for me to do is to, as crazy as it is, but we have to understand this is what our people had to go through at the time. As crazy as it is, the safest thing for me to do for my cousin is to own my cousin. That's the safest thing, because at least if I own him, you couldn't have a white person come up and then snatch my cousin up and own him, because technically he's my property. As messed up as that is, that's what a lot of black people had to do to keep their families intact. All right. So their families can have, first off, be together and then have a little bit of freedom, because they were owned by their own family members. There was a family member who would get their freedom and then, okay, I'm going back, I'm getting my brother, I'm getting my sister, I'm getting, going back and freeing my family. Even though I can't give them their freedom, they can have like some type of, they can exist or experience a level of freedom under my ownership. So that's what a lot of black people who did quote unquote own slaves had to do. All right. But notice he's not going to frame it that way.
And then finally, the Choctaw Indian released their slaves. That was the final batch of black slaves who were freed. Why do they do revisionist history? You can look this up for yourself. Why do they do revisionist history? This is what Jillian Michaels is talking about. Like, Trump is going back into the Smithsonian and some of these federal institutions and saying, are you teaching it properly? Or are you indoctrinating the history of slavery to make one side look bad and to capitulate to the emotionalism of victimhood for another side? It bothers me. The first legal slave owner, I put this on my life. I don't know if I put it on my life. I could almost put on my life that if you go to the Smithsonian, they will never mention Michael Johnson. I don't think they'll mention Michael Johnson. Let me look and see if Michael Johnson is featured in the Smithsonian. Who is Michael Johnson? The first legal slave owner in the United States history. And what does that mean? He had 2 indentured servants who was black. He was a black man himself. He went to court, sued that they would be indebted to him for life. That was the first legal life sentence of a person working for you, which was a slave in those terms, which made him the first legal slave ownership.
Okay, notice that he keeps trying to emphasize the word legal. I'm not going to take too long because he makes some other points, but notice he keeps trying to emphasize the word legal. And the story is very kind of iffy. It's and he's not talking about, his name is not Michael Johnson. His name is Anthony Johnson. All right. And they were talking about indentured servitude. Okay. Indentured servitude. So there were still laws that he had to follow, because, the story goes that the man is named Anthony Johnson, and he had indentured servants, and the indentured servants had to stay with him. Okay, that's where it was from. Okay, that's where the story is from. But even indentured servants in America, they still have certain rights that slaves don't have. Slaves were legally and socially deemed as property, like literal animals that had no human rights, that you did not have to follow any human rights if you owned this slave. Indentured servants didn't have that. They still had rights, and there were still things that their owners could not do. All right. So he's trying to frame this in a very disingenuous way. And even still, he was a former slave. The person that he's referencing right now was a former slave.
Now, other people may have owned people in that manner, but Anthony Johnson legally owned people.
Now, notice that. He's like, well, yeah, other people may have owned people in that manner, but Anthony Johnson, no, other people own people. So why are you trying to frame it as if Anthony Johnson started it? Anthony Johnson didn't start it, but he's trying to frame it like Anthony Johnson started something that wasn't there first.
For life. They were slaves to him for life. Black man, first person, 1600s. 16 something, I forget. Is Michael Johnson listed in the Smithsonian Museum? I can't spell to save my life.
Man, please, God. Oh, my God. You know how old that... And Michael Anthony, hold on. Johnson. the T-H-E Smith, where's the S? Hold on, where's the S? S, like, oh my God, dude, please have your receipts pulled up before, please don't ever do that again. Oh my God, please don't ever do that. Man.
No, not Michael Johnson, the Olympic sprinter. Michael Johnson, the first slave owner.
Why he sounded like he like some type of 5-year-old? Didn't he just call people the R word? Michael What you sounded? He's sounding it out. You don't know how to spell Johnson. Johnson, a slave owner. Okay. Oh, I don't know what type of drugs you on.
Let's see what they say. They probably don't even have him as the first slave. They're trying to rewrite history. You'll mess around and not even hear about him again. Yeah, see that. Look at it now. Let me tell y'all what they look what they doing now, because that's why you can't follow ChatGPT on everything. Look, it says, who is Michael Johnson, the first legal slave owner? ? A case of mistaken identity. The name Michael Johnson seems to be misreferenced. The commonly circulated claim refers to Anthony Johnson. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's me. Let me shut up. That's me. I put Michael Johnson instead of Anthony Johnson. I'm sorry. I've probably been saying Michael Johnson this whole time. I've been saying, I'm sorry, y'all. It's Anthony Johnson. I'm talking too fast. I'm thinking of the sprinter Michael Johnson, and I conflated the two.
Man, you talking too fast. You was about to put us to sleep. What are you talking? You talking too fast. No, you not talking too fast. You not thinking fast enough. Talk about Michael Johnson in the Smithsonian. What are you talking too fast? You ain't talking too fast, moving too fast. Your brain is in slow motion right now.
It's Anthony Johnson. I'm sorry. That is my fault. This one ain't wrong. Okay, that was Brandon Tatum. Let me fix it. I didn't recognize it till right now. I was like, what? Let's see if it gives me some accurate information now. And I got the accurate person in there. Okay. Short answer, Smithsonian does not have dedicated exhibits or lists Anthony Johnson by name in the public-facing collection. His case is sometimes referred to in broader Smithsonian educational material about early slavery in colonial Virginia, but he is not a featured figure like Frederick Douglass or Harriet Tubman. Why? Why?
Because it's not important. It's not. Why does that matter? It doesn't matter. You want a whole exhibit to Anthony Johnson? I think he still referred to him as Michael Johnson. You want a whole exhibit to Anthony Johnson, someone who owned indentured servants? He doesn't deserve a whole exhibit. It's inconsequential. Okay? A Harriet exhibit, an exhibit about Harriet in the slave trade, and of the Underground Railroad is very warranted. Does matter and is of consequence. Okay? But you want an exhibit that makes black people look bad, or that kind of covers what white people have done. Let's pause it for a second. I know. If y'all need a Tylenol, I did say in the beginning, I did tell you guys in the beginning that y'all might need like a bucket next to you, like an empty bucket or a trash can. If y'all want to go take a Tylenol, get something to drink or something. Let me get to these super chats. Y'all, let's debrief. Let's debrief. You know, let's breathe. All right, let's get to super chats. Okay, hold on. Let me see. Freedmen's Network. We're gonna get back to it. Because there's something else I also want to mention as well, too. So I need y'all to hit that like button because there's something else I feel like is important that I want to mention. Freedmen's Network, he says, leave it to them buck dancing for buttered biscuits and cream of bacon bits gravy. Oh, yeah. Oh, you can tell. He love him some butter biscuits. I'm pretty sure he eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay? And for dessert, it's some white ass he kissing. Okay? Freedmen's Network says again, so why weren't any white slave owners if it wasn't about color? Whiter slaves. Thank you. Let me ask you this question. If it was not about color, if it wasn't about race, if slavery had nothing to do with race, why did freedmen not have the same rights as white people? Because they weren't free. I mean, they weren't slaves. They weren't owned by anybody. They were free. So why didn't they have the same rights if it wasn't about race? Even after the Civil War, black people still didn't have the same rights white people did. And now he's going to get to the the civil rights movement. So he is going to get to that, and we're going to talk about that because he is going to get to that. Okay. It defeats everything he's saying. He has to cherry pick every little bit of history. He has to take something from here, and then he has to go over here, then he has to go over here, then grab this right here, and then try to misinterpret things. Because when you actually know about history, it was about white supremacy. They said it was, so you can't say it wasn't. All right, let's get to Ghost Rider. Appreciate you. Says the 7-year war, Revolutionary War, War of 1812, Battle of the Alumnia, I cannot see it. Battle of the Alumnia Civil War, all fought over chattel slavery in America. Google it. It did. They were literally going to war like for years over that. There were so many battles and lawsuits and all of that over slavery. Okay, come on. Shout out to Antithesis out here supporting. Thank you. All of this was over slavery. And then he says Alamo. I don't know why I couldn't see that until you put it there. Thank you very much, pretty brown eyes. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. They made the thing, not Snapchat. I was about to say Snapchat. StreamYard. StreamYard has made the fonts of the super chats very small, so I can see the chat room a lot easier than I can see the super chats for whatever reason. But you know, it is what it is. We just got to work through it. But let's get back to it.
This is the type of stuff that Trump is trying to rectify. Why is it that the first legal slave owner in American history in the 1700s, 16 something, 1700s.
Did y'all hit that like button? Let everybody hit that like button. Appreciate it. Let's everybody. If you guys hit that like button, put a thumbs up emoji in the chat. I want to see how many people hit that like button. How many supporters we got? How many riders we got? Y'all hit that like button. Leave a thumbs up in the chat room. Let me know.
Why is he not featured as an individual worthy of researching? Why? Like that's kind of interesting, wouldn't it be? That's kind of important to note that there is a black man who's considered the first legal slave owner in the history of this country. Well, let's learn about Anthony Johnson. Let's learn about Anthony Johnson. Who was he? How did he become this? What happened in the court system? What was the court system like that a black man can sue and be taken seriously in courts in the 17th century? I mean, the 1600s, 17th century. I'm sorry, y'all.
Here's the thing, though. What defeats the whole argument is that, yeah, even if we give you that and a black man was able to sue another black man for ownership, guess who he was not able to sue? Even if we gave Brandon that, guess who he was not able to sue? He wasn't able to sue white people. While you're trying to argue that American history had nothing to do with racism and it wasn't about race, you're saying that he's able to sue black people, but that black person would be unable to sue white people because he didn't own no white people, nor did any black person. They didn't own no white people. While you're trying to make it seem like it wasn't about race, every single time you bring up the fact that only black people were slaves, you verify the fact that it was about race.
I don't sleep. I stumble over my words, but at least I'm honest enough to correct it. Why don't we talk about him? Why is he not featured? Because I think it's important to know who was the first legal slave owner. And if he was white, he would be there. The fact that he's black, it damages their narrative. I would wonder in the Smithsonian, let me see if this is in the Smithsonian, is Harriet Tubman's husband in these? Let's see if the mention of Harriet Tubman's husband is in the Smithsonian. Clearly, you don't see it's just Harriet Tubman is in a picture by herself. You wouldn't even know she had a husband.
First off,
it says
I swear I'm so sick of him. How do you spell is? Is Harriet Tubman NTHE that is so damn annoying. Please don't do that. Reading out loud. Oh God.
Harriet Tubman's husband in the Smithsonian, John Tubman, first husband. Harriet married John Tubman, a free black man, around 1844. There's no evidence that John Tubman is featured in the Smithsonian collection or exhibit. Why is Harriet Tubman's husband, whom she married in 1844, not featured in the Smithsonian? She's featured. They want us to believe that Harriet Tubman was a single poor black woman, which in fact she was poor, I'm sure, but she was just on the plantation with her lantern. The white man, I gotta escape. She was married.
So what is her being married? And here's the thing. Most of us already knew she was married. She was actually married twice. Okay. But most of us, and he was bucking. His eyes was bucking. His eyes was just bucking. Most of us knew she was married. That's not a groundbreaking fact or anything like that. Most of us knew. If y'all didn't know, Harriet Tubman was married twice, okay? And to her second husband, she stayed married to, I guess, I think he passed away before she did, and then she never remarried again. Then she had adopted children with her second husband, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, most of us already knew that. And to be very honest with you, it's not that relevant. It's just not. He might be bought up, but let's be honest, like, oh, is he featured in there? If he is or if he isn't, that doesn't really change her story like that. And he probably is, okay. If not the first husband, then the second husband who stayed with her, married to her longer. But that doesn't change the story. Okay, he's making it seem like, oh, they want us to believe that Harriet Tubman was looking for black people. She was, whether she was married or not. That doesn't change. I mean, how is that relevant, or what does that change of her story?
And she had her husband was free. So like this changes, in my opinion, the fraudulent nature of what they're trying to perpetuate to us. Why? How did she get married? How was her marriage recognized in 1844? How was a free black man married to a slave? How was that possible? Now, I know how it's possible, but why don't they teach us how that is possible? Did you know that she...
Okay. Listen. I think he thinks that we're like as dumb as him. I think he thinks that we're all as dumb as him, all as slow as him. We have always known that black people have been married throughout slavery. This is not a like, I mean, it is a fact. It's not no groundbreaking news. Nobody is breaking news. How was he able to get... Black people have been married and had children through the times of slavery. We're like, oh, how is it possible? How is it possible? I mean, it's happened. Nobody's really surprised about that. Nobody didn't know that. Everybody knew that. A lot of people who know about Harriet Tubman know about the fact that she was married, okay? None of this stuff is a surprise. And how does any of this stuff prove that Jillian was correct with anything she was saying at all? Anything. It doesn't defeat the narrative of slavery or the history or anything. It really doesn't. He thinks we're all as slow as him.
Also lived with him. They lived together. He didn't want Harriet Tubman to start the Underground Railroad, but she did it anyway. Now, he is obviously emasculated in how it turned out. Why don't they talk about...
He didn't want her to start the Underground Railroad. I don't remember the name, but in chat room, I need y'all help. Correct me if I'm wrong. Who was the person who actually started it? Because a lot of people make it seem like she started it and ran it. The person who started it wasn't Harriet Tubman. Now, she was a huge, tremendous factor, and we will always give credit where credit is due to her helping with the Underground Railroad and freeing black people, but she wasn't the first person to do that. She wasn't the person to start that, okay? And it doesn't make him emasculated. Keep in mind that that's not emasculated. It's not. I'm forgetting the name of but yeah, she didn't start it. That doesn't take away from her credibility. That doesn't take away from anything. But yeah, well, I mean, we're going to tell the truth.
But why is he not in the Smithsonian? Nelson Davis, her second husband. After the Civil War, Harriet married Nelson Davis in 1869. The National Museum of African American History and Culture holds in its collection a black and white portrait or a postcard featuring Harriet Tubman with Nelson Davis and their adopted daughter. These items is part of the museum's photography and memorabilia collection, though the husband appears in the image not as a separate featured object. But why is her first husband not mentioned?
She wasn't married to her first husband that long. Her second husband was more significant to where she took her life after slavery. and how she spent the rest of her life after slavery. So if a museum is going to mention things about her that is relevant, they're probably not going to mention what her favorite breakfast was. They're probably going to mention facts about her life that were the most important. If they're going to do an exhibit on a person and their life, they're going to mention the things that are the most important. If her second husband was probably the most important when it comes to the two husbands, then that's what the Smithsonian is going to mention. Now, he didn't even know that the Smithsonian mentioned her second husband. He was trying to make a point that they didn't mention any of her husbands, okay? And he just disproved himself on ChatGPT in the middle of his own video.
They don't want you to know. See, they want you to know that after she had been freed, after she had done all these wondrous works with the Underground Railroad, they want you to believe then she was able to get married and she was free and she got rights and all that. They don't want to tell you that all this was happening in 1844. Why is that? You know, let's go with Rosa Parks. Let's see if they're accurate about Rosa Parks. I wonder, is this featured in the Smithsonian? Is this featured? So Harriet Tubman had a car when she sat on a bus during segregation. Why would Harriet Tubman ride a bus if she had a car? And on here it says, yes. Did I say Harriet Tubman? I mean Rosa Parks. I'm tripping, y'all. I'm talking too fast. Rosa Parks, sorry, y'all. Don't judge me today. I didn't sleep. I got 2 hours of sleep last night. Rosa Parks did have a car, and it actually is preserved at a history artifact, okay? The Smithsonian National Museum and of African American History and Culture. Oh, maybe, okay, it's in there. They put it in there. This is the same year that she made history by refusing to give up her seat, seated in Montgomery, Alabama. While her car wasn't directly tied to the boycott itself, it's part of her personal history and is displayed and helped tell her broader life story.
This dude is an idiot. This dude is a damn idiot. He's trying to prove a point that the Smithsonian is telling inaccurate truths and trying to paint a narrative. So he's slowly chat GPTing every single question, and he's putting all of that in Chat GPT and is getting proven wrong as he's asking Chat GPT these questions. He's putting a narrative out there and saying, I bet you they don't bring up that Rosa Parks had a car. Chat GPT, did Rosa Parks have a car? Yes. Okay, well, anyway, as he literally says the narrative and then Googles it or researches it and then gets proven wrong in his own damn video. I wouldn't have put this video up if I was him. This video makes him look dumb. I have too much damn self-esteem to be putting it. I don't know if you desperate, if you need the views or something. I don't know. I wouldn't have put this video up. This video, this was a bad look. Your team don't like you or something like that. I would have been like, hey, I don't know. You look like you on some type of drug. I don't know what's going on with you. You're typing all slow. You're saying Harriet Tubman's car. It was Rosa Parks' car. Like I wouldn't have put this video up. I mean, you are dumb, but I mean, dumber than normal. I'm not bullying. He said the R word. I didn't even say the R word, YouTube. I'm not bullying. He's the one who called us the R word. All right. This is banter.
But I will digress on that they at least mention it. I didn't see it when I was there, but allegedly they mentioned it in there. But why would she have a car and be sitting on the bus? Because they staged outrage to push a political agenda. And I think it's wrong to do that. Was it really a big issue that did black and white people feel the same as the narrative that was created? You get what I'm saying? And I'm starting to go back and be very skeptical of the civil rights movement. I'm very skeptical now. I used to be like, yeah, that's one thing that we all agree on, the civil rights movement. No, hold on a second. I'm seeing the same trends with propaganda as we saw with Black Lives Matter. You had people going and staging hate crimes in order to get the appeal and emotional appeal from the masses so they can push an agenda.
Like what? First off, let me tell y'all something. We don't need to stage a hate crime. We do not need to stage a hate crime at all, period. We don't need to do that. We don't, I swear to God, we don't need to do that. We have enough hate crimes that happen to us on the regular basis to where we don't need to stage anything. Our hate crimes automatically get ignored by everybody. So there's no need to stage a hate crime. Let them tell it. Any hate crime we have is staged. Okay, we can have a damn gunman come and chop us down at a damn grocery store, and that's staged. That's a staged hate crime. But let's see where he goes with it. Okay.
Martin Luther King wasn't a conservative. Martin Luther King, although he claimed he was a reverend, you could not find any of his sermons public. Martin Luther King was a Marxist.
That is so disrespectful. That is just I can't even put the words out how disrespectful that was. Martin Luther King was not a damn Marxist. He was not. And then he uses the word claim. He claimed he was a reverend. No, he was a reverend. That's well documented as well too. This dude is just straight up lying. Now notice he didn't ask ChatGPT. Now he's asking ChatGPT about all this other stuff. And he doesn't want to ask ChatGPT about was Martin Luther King a reverend or not? Was Martin Luther King a Marxist or not? Because ChatGPT will tell him, no, Martin Luther King was not a Marxist. Martin Luther King actually was a reverend. And that was well known about him, which is why he had so much credibility from the town he was from, which is why he was able to garner a lot of the people's support in the civil rights movement because of the fact that he was a reverend. He was not a Marxist. And if you want to even talk about the situation with Rosa Parks in a car, the situation is that what they did is highlighted, and they would put themselves in situations not to stage anything as if it's fake, because she really did get arrested. That part wasn't staged. All right. She did. And that was just to highlight the fact that even under the system of quote unquote separate but equal, we were not separate but equal. That's what that was for. Because they want to talk about segregation. Segregation was really not what they claimed to be segregation was. Segregation was black people aren't allowed. It wasn't really white people over here, black people over here, because white people were able to sit in the front of the bus and at the back of the bus. Black people were the only people who were restricted to sit at the back of the bus. You even had other Hispanics and Asians who were able to sit at the front of the bus. It was only the Negro who were made to sit at the back of the bus. And there were other discrimination things that went on where the Asian community and the Hispanics, like the Puerto Ricans, were less discriminated against. The movie Sinners highlights that. If you guys have seen the movie Sinners, I'm not going to spoil it if you guys haven't seen it, but in the movie, there's an Asian couple, and the Asian couple owns 2 stores. And one of the stores are for the black side of town, and another one of the stores is for the white side of town, because they were able to pretty much open shop anywhere they wanted to, while black people at the same time, black people were restricted in being able to stay in one area. Okay. We were restricted in that sense. So what the civil rights movement did is they highlighted and acknowledged the fact that black people, even under the guise of being quote unquote a citizen and separate but equal, we still had to face different laws and different punishments that nobody else had to face. All right.
Martin Luther King, if you look at the decline of the black community after the civil rights movement, you say, well, wait a minute. Rosa Parks had a car. Wait a minute. Rosa Parks had a car. Oh, they went to Montgomery, Alabama. They went to they migrated to places. They bused people into places that they felt that there were.
They bust people into places. No, there were people already in those places. He's trying to frame this as if it was a small crew of people that were just being shipped around all over the place to stage events and then up and leave. No, this was going on all throughout the South. This was going on all throughout the North, actually. They don't really talk about the civil rights movements that was going on in the North, but this was going on all over the place. And it wasn't just Dr. King either. Reverend Dr. King. It wasn't just him either.
There will be a heightened conflict, which means that the people that actually lived there did not have a conflict.
The people who lived there did not have a conflict. Yes, they did. Yes, there was a conflict. Yes, it was. These people were living under white subjugation. What are you talking about? The people who were living there, let him tell it, it was fine and everybody was happy. No. Okay. Black people had to make sure they stayed within certain neighborhoods or else they would be beaten or lynched. That was not happening to the dominant society. So it wasn't everything was fine before Dr. King showed up and caused all this trouble.
They came in and created a conflict. Let's give you an example. White people have a cafe here. Black people have a cafe over here. White people don't go to black people cafe. Black people don't go to white people cafe. Ain't nobody tripping. Black people cafe, they cooking food better than white people cafe, according to the black people. And the white people don't want the black people there anyway because they don't get along. It's good. You over here with
No, it's not good. No. And notice how he frames it in this very minuscule way where he's talking about, well, the white people didn't want the black people there because we didn't get along. No. Oh, no. Why didn't you get along? He's just, we just don't get along. No, you are a white supremacist. That's why. Why don't you say why you didn't get along? Because the thing is that the black people didn't have laws. Now, white people chose not to go to the black cafe. They had a choice too, because it's not like black people were able to call the police on white people. That didn't work at all. But white people had the ability to do that if they chose to. Black people did not have the ability to go to a white-owned cafe. It was illegal for them to step foot in a white-owned cafe, or else the cops would be called. First off, they might be shot, quite literally. And if that didn't happen, the cops would be called and they would be arrested. That was not happening to white people. It wasn't, well, we just have differences of culture and I want to eat over here and you want to eat over here and everything is everything. No, it was not like that. There were laws that prevented black people from being able to do the things that white people were able to do. It was a choice that white people were able to express, and the choice was forbidden from black people. All right. So it wasn't a whole everything is everything. And he's saying we didn't get along. No, you all, the white supremacists at that time were anti-black. That's why you didn't get along. And he doesn't want to frame it that way.
Your life, we over here with our life. Ain't nobody really tripping. It's rare that you would go to you don't need to go to the restaurant because black people have their own restaurant. But what happens is Martin Luther King and these activists bust people into the city.
And first off, what he's saying is not historically true either. There's no evidence that Dr. King was busing people into the city for sit-ins. That's not true. That's not true.
And have them stage in the white restaurants, invoking a response. And they do it until they get the response they want. And they go, look, they're beating us. Look, this is how black people are treated.
Was it
Jillian Michaels
how black people were treated? And listen, let me say this about the civil rights movement, right? And this is something that we have to understand. We got to be mature about this, right? It's easy to be the Monday morning quarterback. It is. With the whole sit-ins, it's easy for us to say in the year of 2025 that was the wrong direction. I will say that was the wrong direction, but there's more to the civil rights movement and to ending segregation. I will champion the end of segregation. Even after segregation ended, we still should have stayed secluded in our own community, we should have done for self. We should have used that opportunity to do for self. I agree with that. I'm not for segregation, okay? I'm for us having our own enclaves and communities, okay? That's the difference between segregation and separation, okay? Just keep that in mind, because segregation is law-backed, where there are restrictions on certain races doing certain things. That's what segregation is. There are legal restrictions based off of a person's race. I don't agree with that. I feel like that should be a choice, and we should have stayed with the choice of separation, okay? So, of course, it's a lot easier for me to say in 2025, but that's what we should have done. Unfortunately, we went the wrong direction. Now, the thing is that ending segregation was important and was necessary. For instance, I will just use hospitals as an example. Back in the day, or even still today, hospitals are largely funded by the government, are very, very largely funded by the government. And back during that time, the government would have a black hospital and a white hospital, or the states would have black hospitals and white hospitals. The government would give money in sanctions and grants and loans and all of that stuff to white hospitals, white clinics, and schools and all of that stuff that they did not do to black hospitals and black schools and black clinics and all of that. Even though you go to work, the black person go to work, the white person go to work, y'all both pay taxes. You own the land, you own the house, you pay taxes, you pay taxes. Y'all both paying me taxes. I'm using the tax dollars and I'm giving it to the white man. And I'm putting the white man's community, I'm building up and I'm establishing a level of quality in the white man's community. And I'm neglecting, even though I have a responsibility to, because I'm receiving taxes from black people. So I have a responsibility to keep the quality of life as the government. I have a responsibility to keep that at a certain standard. But black people, despite paying taxes, had their communities be neglected and oftentimes attacked by the dominant society in the clan. All right. And the government wasn't doing anything about that. So that was a real big reason and really the core for ending the whole thing of segregation. Because they're looking at it like, okay, the government, y'all have a job to do. We have a constitution. Y'all have a job to do. And we're seeing disproportionate amounts of resources being given to the dominant society, even though under the law, you're supposed to be dispersing the resources evenly. It would be one thing if it's like, okay, we want to go to the hospital. We want to go to a black-owned hospital that's funded properly. But if y'all not funding the black-owned hospitals properly, and the only hospitals that are being funded are the white-owned hospitals that don't allow black people in there, then okay, yeah, now we gotta protest. Now we gotta fight for the right for you guys to stop doing that. All right. So that was really the genesis and the core of that, because there's been multiple civil rights movements before. I mean, throughout FBA history, but that was really the genesis of that. I will say, though, over time, and this is unfortunate, but over time, we did lose the plot. It's unfortunate. It's the truth. We can say the truth. We can tell it. We lost the plot. We did. We lost the plot. The plot, the mission should have never been about, integrating with white people socially. Okay, it should have never been about that, or even economically. Laws in Jim Crow laws. It should have stayed with that. But along the way, and a lot of that is because of situations and things like that that are orchestrated from the dominant society. Along the way, we lost the plot and we went down the road to social integration. You understand? And we should have never done that, okay? We should have never done it. Because technically, we are socially integrated, but economically, we're still very much segregated. Economically, we're very much separated. We still have black communities and white communities, black stores. We still are very segregated, especially in certain areas in this country. But socially, we are integrated to various degrees. But we missed the plot, which is why I keep, trying to make sure that we keep the plot on Black empowerment. All right. So we don't miss the plot again. I don't want us to do that. And there's something else, because if we're going to talk about Dr. King, there's something else I want to bring up. Okay. Let me see. Ghostwriter says, U.S. Supreme Court decisions based on race and white supremacy. Dred Scott decision. Slave codes, black codes, Plessy versus Ferguson, Jim Crow, Brown versus Board of Education, first gun laws, and Roe v. Wade. All of these things based off of race, while he's saying that none of this stuff had anything to do with race at all. Tell it like it is says, he's talking real fast, but thinking real slow. That's true. Please, ancestors, pay this coon a visit. Hey, man, get him. I'm about to start roasting this burn. Hey, man, when it happens, I'm gonna be so happy. But you know what's interesting is that, and I decided to wear this shirt for a reason. Shout out to Dr. King. Okay, shout out to Dr. King. All right, we give respect to Dr. King. But he called Dr. King a Marxist. He's slandering Dr. King. Have you guys noticed that ever since we started telling the true history of Dr. King, notice that they kind of abandoned talking highly of Dr. King, the dominant society? I mean, notice that. Notice how the dominant society, they used to always bring up Dr. King. They used to, Dr. King, he wanted peace. Dr. King didn't want, he was nonviolent. Dr. King was nonviolent. Dr. King wanted white people and black people to get along and judge each other by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. They used to hammer us with this whitewash version of Dr. King all of the time. And then the second we said, you know what? Dr. King, okay, you guys constantly bringing up Dr. King to us. Okay, let's go there. Dr. King was about reparations. Dr. King was about that. Once we started highlighting that Dr. King was about reparations, now they already knew that, but they didn't know that we knew that. And they were trying to give us their version of the events, but the liar knows what lie he told. The liar knows that. So the liar knows what the truth is. So they already knew that Dr. King was about reparations, intangibles, and resources. They've been known that, but they kept pushing this false version that Dr. King started and ended his life on some kumbaya stuff. But then when we bring up, actually, Dr. King said he feels like his dream that he gave when he gave the I Have a Dream speech, he feels like that became a nightmare. That's what he said out of his mouth. Those were his words. He also said that he feels like when it comes to the whole integration, he feels like he led his people into a burning building. They didn't like to bring that part up. And then we also bring up, Dr. King also said that we need to go to Washington and get our check. And he said that multiple times, that we're owed reparations. All right. So then once we started speaking truth to power about the true Dr. King, notice that now is the thing where they don't like Dr. King no more. Now all of this thing is they're slandering Dr. King. Now instead of calling him Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., now Dr. King is a Marxist. The same slander that they used to do with Dr. King back during the COINTELPRO, and then they tried to flip it to make it seem like he was some type of kumbaya, I love everybody thing. And then when we're telling the truth, now they're saying, okay, well, I guess we're done with Dr. King then. The jig is up. The jig is up, and I can't play it because of a copyright thing. So I'm just going to play the audio. This is why, and I wish I could play it, but it's a copyright thing. So I can't do it, but I want y'all to listen. This is the audio where they was all like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to, man, we can't really do that we can't really have this go on. with Dr. King. Yeah, we don't want to do this. Hold on. Let me pull this thing.
At the same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Coming to get our check. Oh, they didn't like that. Oh, they don't like that. They don't like that. In respect to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., can we get some money bags in the chat room? Can we get the money bag emoji in the chat room? All right. Talk about we going to Washington to get our check. That's what's on the shirt right here. We're going to Washington to get our check. Can we get the money bag emoji in the chat room? Family, my brothers and sisters, can we do that real quick? And ever since we've done that, there's been a lot of slander of Dr. King, where they're creating these very weird statues because they don't like Dr. King no more, because they can't use Dr. King the way they want to. Okay, they love the version of Dr. King that they can use to manipulate us and pacify us into this go along to get along. Okay, but now that they can't use that the white version of Dr. King, okay, doesn't exist anymore, not in the eyes of black society. Because the thing is that how we view Dr. King is the most important. I want us to understand our power here. We're very powerful people. How we view Dr. King, that's what matters. Not what they tell us about Dr. King. How we perceive Dr. King is what's important. So when we perceive Dr. King as, well, Dr. King, you were an integrationalist, you wanted to be cool with white people, and you were in their pocket, and you did what they wanted you to do. When we had that perception of Dr. King, oh, they loved him. Oh, they loved Dr. King. When that was the general, because it's not always been that way to everybody, but when that was the general perception of him, even to a degree, they loved him. Okay, but now that's not the perception of Dr. King that we have. All right, collectively is not the perception of Dr. King. The clip I just showed you about him talking about we need to go get our reparations. All right, and the government is giving money to a bunch of immigrants for farms and stuff like that, and they're doing that as a buffer class so they can keep us down. All right, so that's the Dr. King. Now they don't like Dr. King no more. All right. Now they're out there trying to slander Dr. King. Have you guys seen this? In Florida, they made this statue. And this statue is supposed to be of Dr. King. This is what this statue is supposed. That's what they're saying. The statue is of Dr. King. Right. And a lot of people are looking at the statue like, you know what? I don't really like that statue. A lot of people looking at it like, hey, the arm look kind of weird. I will give my FBA Floridians, I'll give them their credit, because a lot of them was calling this statue out. A lot of people saying, hey, well, hold on, what is this? Okay, let me show you a news clip.
About a statue unveiled last month in Winter Park. It's in honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and sits in MLK Park.
But as West 2's Gail Pascal Brown shows us, not everyone believes it looks like or represents Dr. King.
because I've been to the mountaintop.
On July 14th, the Martin Luther King statue was unveiled in Winter Park during the city's annual Heritage Unity Festival.
I was a little, I don't know, shocked. Like, it didn't look quite like I thought it would or thought it should.
On the one side, oh yeah, I like it. On the other side, well, it doesn't look like him.
That's what Jonathan Blount, one of the
Now, y'all know for a fact, it's not nobody tripping. If everybody, first off, that lady was, I'm not going to say I don't know where she's from. Clearly, she's an immigrant. You heard her accent. And then the white dude saying, hey, that don't look like Dr. King. So they're admitting that it doesn't look like Dr. King. But the FBAs in Florida is pissed off about it and find it very disrespectful. Okay? So listen to what he has to say. This guy, this brother.
Well, it doesn't look like him.
That's what Jonathan Blount, one of the co-founders of Essence Magazine, told Winter Park commissioners.
It looks awkward. It just didn't look up to the standards that Winter Park is so well known for.
Blount, who is also a mentor for Cap Village, a content creation studio in Orlando, says the feedback from the community has also...
I mean, look at that. Look at that. That if you showed any random person a picture and said, guess who this person is, you wouldn't know who this person was. You wouldn't. The person might guess that it's somebody relevant because it is a statue, but you can't really tell who that person is. The statue is poorly designed. That's a poor statue. And I don't want to hear nothing about the budget or nothing like that. That's the statue, the art is not good.
Been disturbing.
His head was too big, his arm was too big, and it looked really, like a caricature of Dr. King, and didn't really look anything like him.
A committee,
look, he said, the arm. Look at the arm and the head. It looks like he said a caricature. It looks like a bad cartoon of Dr. King. It looks like a bad cartoon of Dr. King. Like that, if you look at the body and then look at the head and you see the proportions of the body and the head, and then the arm he's saying the arm's too big. It's like the actual like bicep from the shoulder to the forearm is decent size. And then the forearm is kind of long. I'm talking about like the bicep and tricep area is so disproportionate to the forearm. The forearm is a little short if you look at it that way. It's very big, it's round, but it's a weird statue. The statue is weird. Okay? It is. It's a weird looking statue. And they wouldn't have did that if they tried to make a statue of George Washington. All right? If this was a statue of Abraham Lincoln, if this was a statue of any white man, they wouldn't have did that to him. Because you don't see no bogus statues of George Washington, of Abraham Lincoln, of anybody like that. You don't even see weird bogus statues of Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general. You don't see bogus statues of that. But this is to mock Dr. King. This statue is a mockery. They're like, hey, we're gonna come out with a Dr. King statue, and we're gonna make his head super big or super small like a bobblehead. That's what they do. This is supposed to be a mockery, like a little inside joke that they can snicker and be all like, look at the Negroes, look at what I did. Now, look at who designed the statue, y'all. It was this Asian man. This Asian dude is who designed a statue, this ugly art. He was the quote unquote artist, this ugly artist of the Dr. King statue. And look at what he says. Look, now he's out here splaining because the black folk is upset about the statue. Now he out here splaining.
Really, like a caricature of Dr. King, and didn't really look anything like him.
A committee selected artist Louis of Huntsville, Alabama, who says this is the first he's heard of it.
I didn't have direct contact with the King estate, but from what I heard, they were very happy with the representation of the sculpture of Dr. King.
Council member.
They were very happy. I don't know how you can be happy about this. And the thing is that there are so many Dr. King statues and paintings and murals where you can take inspiration from. So how did you miss the ball like this unless you deliberately did that? I don't believe this was an accident. I don't. I'm not buying it.
Was responded by saying,
maybe it just didn't come out the way everybody had hoped it would.
Okay. Maybe it didn't come out the way everybody hoped it would. A statue is not like a cake where you put it in the oven, you try to follow the instructions, you put it in the oven and somehow it comes out undone, or somehow it comes out a little bit too overdone. Maybe it burnt on the sides or something. A statue is not like that. You have to sculpt and design a statue. You got to put out the measurements and all of that stuff of a statue, okay? It's not like something you just throw in the oven and then pull out when it's done. What type of excuse? Well, maybe it just didn't come out the way it was supposed to. How does this? I could almost give you a painting. How does a whole statue not come out the way y'all designed it? What went wrong?
I hear what you're saying. So I don't know if there's anything we can do about it at this point because it was a very big investment.
Yeah, do it over. I mean, it just isn't good enough for a permanent, lifelong representation of someone that is just so important to our history.
Hey, I agree with that. Shout out to that, bro. Shout out to that. Shout out to that. I agree with that. Do it over. Do it over. All it is, well, I mean, I don't really know how it turned out. Like, I don't know what went wrong. I don't know how it turned out like that. Oh well, I'm sorry. Oh well, I guess it's just like that now. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, take it down then. How about that? How about we do that? You don't know how it turned out so bad. You don't know how you messed up. Do it over again and do it right, or don't do it at all. How about that? We ain't gonna have no bogus statues out here like that. No, we, especially not of Dr. King. Nah, we ain't gonna do that. Either you do it right or don't do it at all. We ain't gonna have no bogus statues where you're like, well, I guess it just happened to turn out wrong. I don't know, but it's up there now. So no, no, take it down. Take it down. I agree with that.
He says he welcomes all feedback.
The feedback I got from the committee and also the majority of, actually all of the attendees that came to the unveiling was greatly positive.
It just didn't properly characterize Dr. King.
He says he's willing to be a part of the team to help raise the money to what he says correct the statue. Covering Orange County in Winter Park, Gail Pascal Brown, West 2 News.
And that's so it's crazy that now black people got to raise money to get the damn statue removed or replaced. That's crazy. Look at that. Look at that statue. What is that? Talk about, did you make the statue out of a damn 3D printer machine? How did you mess up? Unless you did it on purpose.
Now, the city did not select the artist. The process started with a selection committee made up of the Arts, Parks, and CRA boards. Then a community task force of Hannibal Square residents helped guide the artist on the design. And finally, approval came from the King family.
I ain't trying to listen to that explaining. I don't know about all that. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know about all that. Yeah, I just don't. Approval came. Well, approval didn't come from the community. That's what you need. You need approval from the community. That statue got to come down. That statue got to come down. Nope, we're not doing that. Or y'all get to joke because y'all don't make mistakes. Notice that they don't make mistakes when it comes to putting up statues of George Washington, of Thomas Jefferson, of Abraham Lincoln. Just that's very interesting. Of Christopher Columbus. It's very interesting how great and magnificent those statues are. I'm talking about those statues are so detailed. You can see the damn veins in the arms. You can see the details in their muscles. You can see all of that in their statues. Now, when it comes to a Dr. King statue, like, oh, well, I don't know what happened to it. I guess the arm is all short, the head is all weird to the body, and the shoulders are kind of tight. Man, no. And y'all only doing this because you guys cannot use Dr. King the way you guys used to. Because when they used to use Dr. King as this all lives matter, when they used to all lives matter Dr. King, oh, they loved him. They would have great, magnificent statues. And they didn't really love him for real. They pretended to be honest. But you didn't see any bogus, ugly statues. Okay? But now that we've actually told the truth about Dr. King, now you're starting to see a bunch of ugly, bogus statues. There was one in him where it was just his arm and Coretta's arm, and they were kind of like locked in this very weird position where you weren't able to tell what it was. You're literally not able to tell what it was. It's just two weird looking arms grabbing each other. They didn't do that before. These ugly statues, they didn't do that before. They're doing that now. And they're doing that now because now we know that Dr. King was about reparations. And this is a way of sullying his legacy and mocking him and making it seem like Dr. King was not great like that. This is their way of kind of insulting Dr. King. That statue is an insult. That's an insult. And we're seeing stuff like this because they're upset, they're mad that we're telling the truth about history. They're mad about that. And you know what? That's good. Now the statue got to go. The statue absolutely has to go. But it's good. When the haters are mad, that means we're doing something right, y'all. That means we're doing something right. That means we're actually going in the correct direction. So it's not all bad. The statue's bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending that. But the concept is not all bad, because if we were doing something wrong, they would be happy. And they would be co-signing everything that we're doing. They would be enforcing everything that we're doing. But the fact that we're doing something right, and you're seeing them try to mock Dr. King now, you're seeing them trying to tell this revisionist history, and they're rapidly, think about the Smithsonian. Now that we're bringing up reparations, now that we're even going back and bringing up our indigenous roots to this land, now that we're bringing up history and the fact that we're old things from this land, the fact that we're from this land, now you're seeing a whole, what I call a panic button from the dominant society, where they're trying to factory reset everything in America. You know how when your phone is messing up and is not working the way you really need it to work, now you try to factory reset it, like, ah, man, I got to lose everything. So right now they're trying to clean everything. So that's why in Florida with DeSantis, with slavery, even with the Smithsonian and all of this stuff, they're trying to cleanse and purge America of its history. It's this rapid, okay, we got to get rid of everything. They know too much. The Negroes are onto us. We got to get rid of everything. That's what they're doing now, which is good for us. Because the fact that we see them in this red alert panic mode means that we're actually going in the right direction. That's what that means. The fact that we're seeing them mock is not good. But the fact that we're seeing them take that step means that we know that they know that we're making the right move. Because they know what the right move has always been. And they've been trying to manipulate us into the wrong direction. But now that we realize, oh, actually, we were supposed to be going that way. And now that we start going that way, now we're seeing them do stuff they've never done before. Okay? They've never done before. Okay? So that is a sign that we're actually heading in the right direction. So all we got to do is keep on doing that. Right now, we're doing what we are supposed to do. All we have to do is keep going forward. Keep the pressure on. That's all we got to do. All right. We're already winning. We already got them losing their minds. They're going crazy. We just got to keep going forward. That's it. All right. Let me get to Spice Radio says TLK, Tether Luther King, looks African. I don't know who this man. Look, Bumpy right now. I don't know what's going on. Well, it is, the weather is real bad out here right now. So that might be why. The weather is kind of bad. So it could be why. Because I've been noticing like the signal's been kind of tripping. If it's been kind of tripping, y'all just excuse that. It's the weather out here. Okay. I don't know who he looked like. But you see that, and even though, like, for instance, when you see the situation going back to Jillian, why did Jillian panic the way she did? Jillian damn near had a little Karen meltdown. And it all goes back to even the thing with Dr. King and his statue. All of that stuff ties together. It all connects. Every time we talk about history, now you're starting to see they're having meltdowns. They have, oh, I can't believe it. We shouldn't be telling history about, stop. They're literally on live television having meltdowns about history, about things that are well known to be true, facts that are well known to be true. Why are they doing this unless we're heading in the right direction? It wouldn't even make sense unless we were heading in the right direction, that they're having this knee-jerk reaction to a historical fact. Because back in the day, they didn't mind telling you. And I said this before on this channel, they didn't mind telling you that slavery built America. That used to be a thing that they said, oh yeah, slaves built America. Hell, I was about to say Dr. King, Donald Trump even said that. Used to be a thing that they said. Now we're saying, okay, well, if slaves built America, then that means you owe me money. Oh, now they're like, oh, well, the whole slaves built America. That's not really happened. Only 2%, only like 2%, only really 2 people own slaves. So, slavery was a thing. It was like kind of there and gone. It wasn't really no big thing like that. Now notice that they're doing that. They always downplayed slavery. They always did, and never told the truth about it. But now it's this big, crazy rush and agenda and narrative to downplay slavery to the best degree you can. Okay? To completely whitewash slavery away. To cover that up. That's why when Jillian was on the CNN on that debate thing, she literally like lost her mind. She was like, well, what about this? And what about sports? And what about genes and chromosomes? And Cuba? Like just going all over the place. Okay. Losing her mind because they all collectively understand what these conversations lead to. When you talk about slavery, ultimately, every time we talk about slavery, what does that conversation lead to? Reparations. Now we're not having any conversations about slavery without also tying that to reparations, like Dr. King was talking about. So, and they all know this. So now that we're tying all these conversations about slavery to reparations, they don't want to talk about slavery no more. It was okay when they thought that mentioning slavery put us in this psychological cage of low self-esteem. When we were chained and we had this psychological low self-esteem where we only saw each other as slaves and we only saw each other as former slaves and we didn't know where we were really from and all of this stuff. Oh, it was fine. It was fine. Fine. Talking about slavery. Oh, that was fine. But now that we're viewing things differently, which is why I keep saying that it's important how we put things into context and how we tell the story. All right. Now that we're viewing things in its proper context, now that we're saying like, oh, okay, well, we're not denying slavery happened, but because slavery happened, the government owes us reparations for it. Now it's all like this immediate rush to say, okay, the Smithsonian, blow it up, blow it up, blow all the museums up, blow all the museums. Any books that has the word slave in it, burn them all. Like they're doing that. Okay. And this is something that if you understand the history of white supremacy, they've actually done, where they would go and they would erase and burn different books and scriptures and artifacts of the indigenous people there, so they can put their own narrative. That's their way of erasing their documented history, so they can embed their own history there. All right. So this is something that they're doing now, because they like to keep this dark cloud of you were a former slave above our head. And now that we're actually flipping that on them, we pulled the reverse Uno on them. And now that we're saying, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I was a slave. I'm a descendant of American chattel slavery. I'm a descendant of slaves. Yes, I am. So where's my check? Now that we're doing that, now all of a sudden they like pulling their hair out. Okay, they're hitting the damn red panic button. Okay, you got the damn red alert alarm going all over the place. They are like, I don't know what to do. Just blow everything up, burn everything, say it didn't happen, lie. All you gotta do. That's what they're doing now. That is letting us know that we are doing the right thing. All right, that's all we need to know. That is letting us know that what we're doing, we got to keep on doing that. As a matter of fact, we got to go harder. We got to push a little bit harder than that. If we're going in the right direction, now we got to put more pressure on the gas. Now we got to go faster. Now we got to go a little bit harder. Now we got to do a little bit more. Okay. Now we got to expand and let more people know about what we're doing. Okay. The second you realize you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing, and that's the right strategy, oh, you got to go full stop on that. Okay. You got to, a foot to the floor on the gas pedal. That's what we got to do. All right. So that's why they're panicking. So all of that, and all in all, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. It's disrespectful, and yeah, we can take it down, and yeah, we can see it as disrespectful, as we should, but we have to understand the fact that they're doing that kind of signifies to us that we're winning. All right. That we are. Let me get to this of the super chat. Spice again says the Bible says Ham is the let me see something. Hold on, let me see if I can zoom in then. Ham is the progenitor of the dark race, okay? But not the Negro. FBA are Negroes, not African. Off topic, but it was on my mind. LOL. Hey, appreciate you, fam. Appreciate y'all. All right. Thank you guys. First off, I want to thank you guys for speaking of which, hold on. For the sale. We had a tremendous sale. Everybody loves the FBA shirts when we had the Black American heritage flag in the American thing. People love that. People also got a lot of the FBA shirts as well too. So it was really good. Thank you guys for that. Let me know what you guys think when you guys get your packages or whatever the case is. Just, put it in a community tab and all of that stuff. Let me know when you guys get it. Let me know what you guys got and all that. I would love to see that. So that would be really good. So I appreciate that from you guys. We're going to have a good week. I got some good content for you guys coming up. So thank you guys for that. I think we started the week off pretty good. We've been, I remember telling you guys last week, that because of last week, Monday, literally a week ago, we got an age restriction on YouTube. You know how they do. It is what it is. You know how they do. We've been here. We know how they do. With age restrictions on YouTube, that throws the channel off of recommendations. One of the main things to get people watching the channel and to get people subscribed to a new channel is their timeline. Because most people, and this is, you can do your own research of this, most people, when they're scrolling through on their phones or on their computers or whatever the case is, they're scrolling through, and if they see a video that they like, they'll click it. All right. So a lot of that is YouTube's algorithm putting that on people's recommendations and putting that into people's timelines. All right. So when they give age restrictions or when they give copyright stuff and everything like that, what happens is that throws that off of the algorithm, and that suppresses the percentage of the likelihood that they would put that on one of the viewers' recommendations, even if they are subscribed. So right now, we're going to have a lot of subscribers who are unfortunately not going to be seeing this. It is what it is. We've been here before. which is why I'm not panicking. It comes with the territory. We've been here before. It's nothing new. So I appreciate you guys making sure that you guys, watch the live and comment and all of that stuff. So that's really good to kind of get us to kind of like break the little glass ceiling thing that we're going through right now, to break that. I appreciate that. Okay. I appreciate that. It's something we've been through. It's something we've been through. So if you guys notice that the numbers are a little bit lower, that's why. Ever since Monday, notice we was doing really good. And then ever since Monday, the numbers have kind of been lower than normal. That's why, because of the age restriction that we get. I still can't put the video up yet. They still haven't approved. I still have the video on private. I still can't put it up yet because they still tripping about it. But it is what it is. It's okay. We're still working on it. It's okay. So we're going to have to, do a little bit of something, get over it. But it is what it is. So if the views are a little bit lower, it comes with the territory, y'all. It just does. I'm not tripping. Y'all not tripping. We good. We locked in still. We still locked in. All right. Just letting y'all know, want y'all to stay informed of what's going on. It is what it is. But that also is a sign. That also is a good sign that we are doing the right thing. That still shows it's a sign that we're doing the right thing. It's a sign. And people will see it when they need to. People will see this when they need to. I'm not tripping about it. Now, we do got some other good stuff. I appreciate every single last one of you guys for being here with us. Am I supposed to call me? Appreciate y'all. Shout out to Mike. I appreciate Mike for the cash app. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's a shadow ban. It's a shadow ban, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm not tripping on it, okay? Because it's all about the message anyway. It's all about speaking truth to power anyway, all right? So the thing is that you can maybe suppress the channel, but the channel has a core to it. This channel has a core where people are going to check in every time, even if they don't see it on the recommendations. And the core is growing and it's too strong. So even if we go through a shadow ban, and we've been through some bad shadow bans, this ain't as bad as it used to be, but we've been through some bad shadow bans. Even if we go through a shadow ban, the core is going to show up every single time. So we're always going to break through the shadow ban. There's literally nothing that they can do because you guys are individuals. So there's nothing that they can do to stop you guys unless there's nothing you can do, okay? Even if they unsubscribed you, which they do, even if they unsubscribed you, you guys would still check in. So there's nothing that they can do. So that's why I'm not tripping on it. I'm really not tripping. I'm just letting you guys know, all right? But with that being said, family, I appreciate y'all. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for liking. Make sure that you guys leave that like button. Make sure y'all leave that like button. Please do. Thank you. Hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Also, if you guys are not getting the notifications, you guys can go to my social media where I put extra notifications on, just to be safe. Just to be safe. It is what it is. But appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. I will see you guys soon. We got some good stuff coming up. Black first as always, family. Y'all stay blessed.